Next, illustration 14. Mr. X sold his house property in Bangalore as well as rural agriculture land for a consideration of 60 lakh and 15 lakh, okay, respectively, to Mr. Y. Dates are important, so 1st August 2021. He has purchased the property and the land for 40 lakhs and 10 lakh. So this will be the cost of acquisition, right? So now let's talk about first rural agriculture land. So capital gain arises only when the transfer of capital asset takes place, right? But in the definition of capital asset, rural agriculture land is specifically excluded, right? So there is no capital gain tax arise on that, okay? So there will be no capital gain on rural agriculture land. Now let's talk about the house property. So house property is sold for 60 lakh, but the stamp duty value as on the date of transfer is 85 lakh. So we will consider 85 lakh as a full value of consideration. So 85 lakh will be the full value of consideration. We have to deduct 40 lakh, that is the cost of acquisition, and there will be no indexation as the holding period is up to 2 years, right? Because land is purchased in the year 2020 and sold on 2021, so the holding period is up to 2 years. So it is a short term capital asset. So in case of short term capital asset, there is no indexation. So 85 lakh minus 40 lakhs, so 45 lakh will be the capital gains on house property. Next we have to determine the tax implication on both Mr. X and Mr. Y. So in hands of Mr. Y, 45 lakh is the capital gain capital gain, and we have to apply tax rate on that, right? So in this case you can see, as per section 53C, 85 lakh will be the full value of consideration, therefore 45 lakh will be the capital gain, taxable as a short term capital gain. Since rural agricultural land is not a capital asset, so capital gain will not arise. And next, in case of Mr. Y, so Mr. Y got the property at 60 lakh, which is less than fair market value, fair stamp duty value, right? So 60 lakh is less than stamp duty value, and it is of course more than 10% of the consideration, or 50,000 rupees. So we will consider the difference as a income from other sources as a gift, right? So 85 lakh, which is the stamp duty value, minus 60 lakh, 25 lakh will be the income from other sources. 25 lakh will be the income from other sources, okay? And agricultural land is not a capital asset, so section 56(2) are not attracted on the receipt of agricultural land for inadequate consideration, since the definition of property includes only capital asset and rural agricultural land is specifically excluded from it, okay? And there is one more tax implication, as Mr. Y has purchased a property whose stamp duty value is more than 50 lakh, right? So he has to deduct the TDS at the rate of 1%, okay? And there is an amendment there, because stamp duty value we have to consider whichever is higher, right? So stamp duty value is 85 lakh, so 1% will be calculated on stamp duty value, so 85 lakh into 1%. So 85 lakh into 1%, 85,000 will be the TDS that is required to be deducted. Earlier there is no point of stamp duty value, we just have to calculate 1% or the threshold limit 1% of actual consideration, but there is an amendment, we have to consider stamp duty value or full value of consideration, whichever is higher. So stamp duty value is 85 lakh, so TDS also will be deducted on stamp duty value, right? So 85,000 will be the tax required to be deducted. Next is illustration 15. So Mr. X, a salaried individual, it means he is not covered under section 194I, because in 194I, who are the individuals and HUF are covered? Those whose turnover or gross receipt in the previous year exceeding 1 crore or 50 lakhs respectively, right? But other than individual HUF who are covered under 194I, section 194IB can be attracted, okay, only for those individuals or HUFs who are not covered in 194I. So 194IB are for salaried individuals, you can say, or small business owners, right? Those individual or HUFs. Now he is a salaried individual, pays the rent of 55,000 per month, and 194I cannot be attracted, though the total rent 55,000 into 10, 5,50,000 is the total rent, right? Though it is exceeding 2,40,000, but 194I cannot be attracted because he is a salaried individual. He is not a business owner whose turnover is exceeding 1 crore or gross receipt exceeding 50 lakh, right? So 194I cannot be attracted, but 194IB will attract, because in case of 194IB, no TDS on rent if per month rent or part of the month is up to 50,000, okay. If it is up to 50,000, then there is no need to deduct TDS, but if it is a 50,000 or more, then TDS is required to be deducted at a rate of 5%, okay, in section 194IB. And also TDS is required to be deducted at the time of credit or actual payment of the last month rent, okay, whichever is earlier. Last month rent, so what is the last month here? From June 2021 to what is the last month? 31st March in first case, okay, 31st March 2022, it is the last month, and this is the other cases, right? First we will talk about this. So 5,50,000 into 5,50,000 into 5%, 27,500 will be the total TDS that is required to be deducted on the last month of the year. So on last month 27,500 is required to be deducted for the from the rent payable for the month March. And would your answer change if Mr. X is vacated his premises on 31st December 2021? So in this case TDS is required to be deducted on 31st December 2021. So here the total rent will be June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So total months is 7, right? 7 into 55,000, 3,85,000, and here there is no limit of 2,40,000, right? Whenever rent is 50,000 or more per month, then TDS is required to be deducted. So 3,85,000 into 5%, 19250 is the TDS amount that is required to be deducted while rent payable on December, right? Rent of December. So here, and next is, what would be your answer if Mr. Y does not provide PAN to Mr. X? So in case Mr. Y does not provide PAN to Mr. X, then TDS rate will increase to 20%, okay. So but it cannot exceed the rent of the last month, okay. So what is the rent of the last month? 55,000. So it cannot exceed 55,000. So let's calculate in the first case if PAN is not provided. So 5,50,000 is the total rent into 20%. So 1,10,000 is required to be deducted, but maximum can be deducted is 55,000. That is the rent of the last month. And in this case 385,000 is the total rent, and into 20% 77,000. And in this case too, max TDS can be deducted is the rent of the last month. So max 55,000 can be deducted. So you can read the answer. In first case 1,10,000, but max 55,000 can be deducted, and in the second case 77,000, but max 55,000 can be deducted. So this is section 194 IB, and this section is applicable only to those individual HUF who are not covered in 194I. Next is illustration 16. XYZ makes the payment of 28,000 to Mr. Ganesh on 2nd August 2021 towards fees for professional services, and another payment of 25,000 made to him towards fee for technical services. So 194J will be attracted or not. So here first service is, that is 28,000 is for professional service and 25,000 is for technical services, and the threshold limit for section 194J is 30,000, right? So whether TDS is required to be deducted or not. So the answer is no, because we have to check this limit separately. On for professional services there is a limit of 30,000, for technical services there is a limit of 30,000, for non-compete fees there is a limit of 30,000, for royalty there is a limit of 30,000, right? Here you can see for technical service there is a limit, separate limit of 30,000, and TDS rate is also different, right? For technical services it is 2%, and for professional services it is 10%, and for royalty for sales, distribution, exhibition of cinematographic 2%. So there is a common limit of between these because both are royalty, right? So there is a separate limit of 30,000 for that. But for directors there is no limit. Whenever we pay to any fees to director, there is no limit. We have to deduct the TDS at the rate of 10%, and for non-compete fees there is a separate limit of 30,000. So basically there is a separate limit of 30,000 for each kind of services, right? So here the payment is for different services, so TDS will not be attracted. And when we have done the question of 194I, in that we have to check the aggregate, right? Aggregate limit for rent on plant and machinery and for rent of building, right? In that section we have to check the aggregate limit, but in this section we have to check different separate limit for each kind of professional services. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of services in 194J. First is technical service, second is professional service, third is royalty, fourth is for directors. For directors there is no limit of 30,000, right? From the starting rupee they have to deduct TDS, and non-compete fees there is no, there is a limit of 30,000 separately. Okay, so there are 5 kind of services in 194J. Next is illustration 17. East Bengal Club, a renowned football club, has engaged Mr. Raghu, a resident of India, as a coach. So coach is of course a kind of professional service, right? And it is also clarified by the CBDT. So at a remuneration of 6 lakh per annum, and the club wants to know whether it is liable to deduct TDS from such remuneration or not. So of course it is required to be deducted at the rate of 10%. So 6 lakh at the rate of 10%, 60,000 is required to be deducted. Okay, so this is given as per the CBDT in exercise of powers conferred explanation to 194J. You have to write this kind of language too, right? Next is illustration 18. Examine whether the TDS provisions are required to be attracted or not. Okay, specify the rate of TDS applicable in each case. We have to check, and here you should have knowledge of 194M, which is applied on individuals or HUF other than required to deduct TDS in section 194C, 194H and 194J. Okay, C, H, J. So if that section is not applied to individual HUF, this section will apply 194M. Okay, and no TDS in 194M if amount is up to 50 lakh. Okay, so these 2-3 things you have to understand. So let's discuss the first part. Mr. Ganesh, an individual carrying on retail business with the turnover of 2.5 crores in previous year 2021. So here you have to understand whether it is covered under those sections 194C and J or not. It is covered, right, because its turnover is 2.5 crores which is exceeded 1 crore. Okay, so those individual sections 194C and J will be applicable on this particular individual. So he has made the contract payment for repair of residential house and the aggregate payment is 5 lakh, but you have to understand this is for the personal purpose and no TDS is required to be deducted if the payment is for personal purpose. Okay, the contract is for personal purpose, so on 5 lakh there is no TDS will be applicable. And payment of commission to Mr. Valish for business purpose 80,000 and 194H will be applicable, right. 194H, there is a threshold limit of 15,000 and it is exceeding 15,000, so 5% TDS will be applicable on this, right. So 80,000 into 5%, 4,000 will be required to be deducted. Okay, so let's read first Mr. Ganesh. So contract payment is for repair of residential, no TDS is required to be deducted because it is for a personal purpose. And 194M is also not applicable because this will be covered in 194C and J because turnover is more than 1 crore. And payment of commission to Mr. Valish for business purpose, TDS will required to be deducted at rate of 5% because it exceeds 15,000, right, and Mr. Ganesh turnover exceeds 1 crore in the previous year. Next case is Mr. Rajesh, a wholesale trader whose turnover is 95 lakh in the previous year, right. So turnover is up to 1 crore, so 194M will be applicable, 194C and J will not be applicable because turnover is up to 1 crore. So contract payment for reconstruction of residential house made during January-March 2022, total payment we have to check whether total payment is exceeding 50 lakhs or not. So total payment we can check 20 lakh plus 15 lakh plus 20 lakh in March. Okay, so total payment is 55 lakh, so it is exceeding 50 lakh in a particular financial year, so TDS is required to be deducted at the rate of 5%. So 55 lakh into 5% will be the TDS amount. So 55 lakh into 5%, 2,75,000 is required to be deducted under section 194M. And next is Mr. Satish, a salaried individual. So he is a salaried individual, so 194M will be applicable on that also. So 194C, 194H, 194J will not be applicable. And payment for brokerage of buying residential house in 194M we cannot, in 194M we don't see whether the payment is for personal purpose or business purpose, right. So whether it is the payment for residential house we have to check. So 51 lakh which is exceeding 50 lakh, right, so 5% TDS will be deducted, so 2,55,000 TDS will be deducted. So let's check first. So in second case 55 lakh TDS will be deducted at the rate of 5% on whole 55 lakh. Okay, and in third case Mr. Satish, a salaried residential individual, 51 lakh and TDS is required to be deducted on 51 lakh into 5% under section 194M. And the last is Mr. Dheeraj, a pensioner, contract payment made during October to November of a residential house is 48 lakh which is less than 50 lakh, right, because in section 194M no TDS if amount is up to 50 lakh. So amount is up to 50 lakh, that is 48 lakh, so no TDS is required to be deducted. And he is also not covered in 194C and J because he is a pensioner, there is no business or turnover kind of thing, right. So in fourth case TDS will not required to be deducted. Next is illustration 19. So Mr. Sharma, a resident Indian, this is important, resident Indian, because for deductions we have to check whether he is a resident or not, right? And for tax rate, slab rate also we have to check whether it is a resident or not, he is a resident or not. And it is also important what is the age of the individual. It is 77 years, so he is a senior citizen, right? And gets the pension of 52,000 per month, okay, from the UP state government, and same is credited into his saving bank account, and in addition he gets interest on that also. So there will be the many incomes, right? So first let's calculate the income from salary. So what is the income from salary? 52,000 per month, right, into 12, because we are assuming he gets pension from starting of the year, right? So 52,000 into 12, 6,24,000. But there is a standard deduction of 50,000 that he will get, right, in case of salary. So 5,74,000 is the income from salary. It's clear. Next is the same is credited to his saving bank account, so there will be a saving bank interest, right? And there is a fixed deposit interest too, that is 8%. So 8% on FD he will get. So 20 lakh FD, he gets 8%. So 1,60,000 will be the interest on FD, and there is a saving account, so there is an interest of that also. So 1,60,000 will be the interest on FD, and 9,500 is the saving bank interest, okay? So total interest will be 1,69,500. So income from other sources will be 1,69,500. So here you can see the income from salary and income from other sources, it's matched, right? And there are many deductions because it's given that rupees 2 lakh represent 5-year term deposit made by him, right? So under 80C, section 80C, we get deduction maximum 1,50,000, and there is a point there of investing in 5-year term deposit. If we deposit 5-year term deposit, we will get deduction up to 1,50,000. So maximum deduction can be claimed is up to 1,50,000. So he will get 1,50,000 deduction for 80C, and he get many interest, right? FD interest and saving bank interest. So for that 80 TTB will be applicable as he is a senior citizen. In case he is not a senior citizen, then 80 TTA will be applicable only for the interest on saving bank account, but he is a senior citizen, so 80 TTB will be applicable, and he will get the deduction of up to 50,000, right, on saving bank interest and FD interest both, but maximum 50,000. So maximum 50,000 can be claimed on that. So total deductions 2,000 he can claim, sorry 2 lakh he can claim, okay? So now 743,500 is the gross total income, and we have to deduct deductions, that is 2 lakh. So 5,43,500 is the net taxable total income. So we can calculate tax on that 8,700 plus 10,000 on that up to 5 lakh part, right? So total TDS, total tax payable will be 18,700 plus health and education cess. So 19,448 we can round off, 19,440 is the total tax payable, right? And next, the second part of the question, what would be the amount of TDS by SBI, assuming that the same is by the specified bank, same is a specified bank. So here you should have knowledge of 194P, right? In 194P, the specified bank will deduct the TDS and deposit to the central government, and the payee, who is Mr. Sharma, is not required to file the income tax return, right? Because fixed deposit is also from that particular bank, right? So let's read the SBI, being a specified bank, is required to deduct TDS in 194P and remit the same to the central government. In such case, Mr. Sharma will not be required to file income tax return. But in case the fixed deposit of 20 lakh is with bank other than SBI, then Mr. Sharma will not be the specified person. And one more thing, that particular, the age of the individual for claiming 194P is should be 75 years or more, right? And Mr. Sharma is 77. So which is the bank where his pension is credited? Mr. Sharma would not be qualified as a specified senior citizen because the FD is in another bank account. If any income generated through another bank account, then he cannot, well, 194P will not be applicable. Then normal provisions will be applicable. So in that case 194A will be applicable, and the limit is 50,000, and in this case 20 lakh into 8%, 1,60,000, right? 1,60,000, which is more than 50,000. So TDS will be applicable at the rate of 10%. So 16,000 will be deducted as a TDS in this case, because the FD is with bank other than SBI, right? SBI is not. Next is illustration 20. Mr. Gupta, a resident Indian, in its retail business turnover was 12 crores. Okay, so if turnover is 12 crores, that is more than 10 crore, 194Q will be applicable, right? And payer will be any person, that is buyer, right, who will buy the goods and pay the cash, right? And pay can be any resident person who is a seller. And what is the TDS rate in 194Q? 0.1%. okay, and here we will apply not on the whole amount, only in excess of 50 lakhs. okay, whenever the amount is exceeding 50 lakhs, only on the excess amount we have to apply 0.1%. Next, he regularly purchased goods from another resident, Mr. Agarwal, a wholesaler. Aggregate payments in the financial year is 95 lakh, which is of course more than 50 lakhs. So 20 lakh, 25 lakh. So first 20 lakh, no TDS will be applicable. Then again 25 lakh, we have to add 45 lakh, no TDS applicable. And after that, on 23 November, 22 lakh more purchases, right? So plus 22, 67 lakh is the total purchase up to 23 November. So we have to deduct TDS on excess of 50 lakh, that is 17. On 17 lakh into 0.1%, TDS will require to be deducted. So 0.1%, that is 1700. okay, and after that 28 lakh. So here also on 28 lakh, 0.1 TDS is required to be deducted because it is already in excess of 50 lakhs, right? So on 28 lakh into 0.1%, 2800. So let's see, since Mr. Gupta's turnover is exceeding 10 crore and the payment is also exceeding 50 lakh, so on excess of 50 lakh, 0.1% TDS is required to be deducted. So no TDS on 1st June and 12th August because the amount is not exceeding 50 lakh as on that dates. Next, tax of 1700 is required to be deducted under 194Q, and 2800 is required to be deducted under 194Q on 25th March. okay, because both section 194Q and 206C 1H applies, and this is the only section on which 194Q will prevail. okay, if both sections is applicable, then 194Q will be applicable. Next is, would your answer be different if Mr. Gupta's turnover was 8 crore? So if the turnover of Mr. Gupta is 8 crore, then 194Q of course will not be applicable, because 194Q will be applicable only on any person whose last year turnover is more than 10 crore. So Mr. Gupta's turnover is not more than 10 crore, so 194Q will not be applicable. So in this case TCS section will be applicable, that is 206C1H. okay, and the rate is also same, 0.1% on the excess amount. So the TCS amount is also same as the TDS amount, because all the provisions are same, like rate is 0.1% and TCS will be applicable on excess of 50 lakhs. Okay, so next is, would your answer to 1 and 2 different if PAN has not been furnished by the seller? So if PAN is not furnished by the seller, then in case of 194Q, that 0.1% TDS rate will increase up to 5%, and in case of 206C1H, TCS rate of 0.1% will increase up to 1%. Okay, simple. So here you can see the answer. If PAN is not furnished, TCS rate will be 5% of 17 lakh and 5% of 28 lakh, and in case of TDS, it is TDS rate is 5% in case PAN is not furnished, and TCS rate is 1% if PAN is not furnished. Okay, so 1% of 17 lakh 17,000, 1% of 28 lakh 28,000 has to be collected by Mr. Agarwal. Okay, next is illustration 21X. While making payment net of tax to a non-resident providing technical services on a World Bank aided project, TDS is required to be deducted, and it has deducted the TDS, but he is saying that the payee is not entitled for the TDS certificate. So of course it is wrong. Whenever TDS is required to be deducted, it is the responsibility of the payer to furnish the TDS certificate to the payee, non-resident, right? So it's wrong. Of course, you can read the para, it's the theory. Next is illustration 22. The amount of 40,000 was paid. Amount of 40,000 was paid to Mr. X. Okay, on 1st July 2021 for professional services, and the threshold limit under 194J is 30,000. So he was required to deduct TDS of 10% on 40,000, that is 4,000, right? But he has not deducted the TDS, and finally he has deducted the TDS on the whole amount on 28 February. So what is the time period? How many months or part of the months? So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, total 8 months delay, right? 8 months or part of the months, we can say. Okay, so 8 months. So 1% for each month or part of the month interest will be chargeable under section 2011A. So 40,000 into 10%, 4,000 is required to be deducted, but it is deducted on 28 February. So after 8 months, so 8 months interest, so 1% into 8, 320 will be the interest. Okay, and next there is one more interest, because TDS there is a delay in depositing the TDS, because TDS is deducted on 28 February. It is required to be deposited on 7th of the next month, right? But it has not deposited, so total delay will be 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, because it is deposited on 22 June, so total 4-month delay. So there is an interest of 1.5%. okay, from the due date of, from the month in which it should be deposited and to the month it is actually been deposited, right? So total 4 months or part of the month. So how much TDS? 90,000 into 10% into 1.5% into 4 months. So 540 will be the interest on delaying the tax deposited. Okay, 540. Total interest will be 860. So this is the interest under section 2011A.